All right, welcome back to the Live the Dream Media Network. Christopher DeSimone, Malta Joe's in the box with Shay in a beautiful support mode, and love what they're doing with those new bumps. Appreciate it. Let's go right to the video conference technology, and we have our good friend, the mayor of Yuma, Arizona, Doug Nicholls, on the line. Doug, good morning, my friend. Welcome aboard.
Good morning. Thank you for having me on, and congrats on the new show. This is a pretty cool format. I like it.
It's amazing format. It's freed up my entire life, Doug Nicholls. I love it.
Yeah.
Amazing. So for people who don't know, give us a little, hey, everyone has their state of the town and all those addresses where we eat rubber chicken together. Give me the 3-minute Yuma state of the town. Let's start there for the folks, please.
Well, we're actually right in the process of writing that right now, so I'll give you the unedited draft.
It's a little late. That. It's March. No, well, actually, that's true because Marana does their state of the town next month too. So,
right, and it's because usually we end up needing some time to gather some of the data from the previous year, and we don't have the mega staff that the feds and the state have. But the 3-minute state of the city is this: Yuma's growing, continuing to grow. We're dropping in crime rate. We're very stable. We're getting ready to make some pretty major announcements on some new jobs, some new locates here in Yuma. Unfortunately, your show's a couple weeks ahead of when those are going to go public, so I can't quite say, but all that's coming through. And then we're working on some great initiatives: an innovation hub in our downtown in a Brownsfield redevelopment area, and a international spaceport. In other words, an ability to launch rockets from within the state of Arizona and be able to get communication satellites. We're not launching Teslas, and we're not launching people into space. These are going to be small form rockets, but they're going to be here in the state of Arizona that we're going to be able to build upon the aerospace industry we already have, and hopefully grow that as a state and particularly as a region for Yuma.
So that's for all these people in Tucson who drive, they stop in the bathroom and go to Mr. G's to go to San Diego. We know better, as we like to say. Right. What's the aerospace presence right now that you're building on in relation to as the spaceport thing starts developing?
So regionally, Mexicali, which is about 40-minute drive away, it has a very vibrant aerospace manufacturing hub. So we're building upon that, and the 700 Marines that work here at MCAS Yuma in the aviation field that leave the Marine Corps every year. So we've got about 5,000 Marines on base, but about 7 of them retire or just leave from the Marine Corps. Well, they've got aviation experience, airframe experience, and security clearance, right? And they've got a skill set that we need to take a better advantage of. And so really that's kind of what we're trying to target. Is building the spaceport is really about building the sector. It's not, launching rockets is cool, but it doesn't really create a lot of economic engine. It's not an economic engine in and of itself.
Right.
It's all the ancillary work that comes with it.
So I saw this evening, the spaceport thing caught on my radar because I saw someone post something how you need some help from the state legislature in getting to there. What is that dynamic that needs to happen with the legislature? Is this just the permission to shoot rockets off in Arizona? Where are we at?
No, actually, a couple years ago, we needed to change some of the laws in the state of Arizona about liability and launching into space. And so that was addressed a couple years ago. And then I guess more recently in the state legislature, they created last year the Space Commission. And we presented to the Science and Tech Committee at the state House about 3 weeks ago, kind of this same concept. But at this point, we're not asking for anything from the state. This is just moving forward here locally with some local funds. But I really look at it as a state asset. So at some level, we're going to need to have, a robust discussion on what does that look like.
Sure. When you talk about earlier in your state of the town 2.5-minute speech that you did beautifully on, you mentioned the idea that the area is growing. So the growth we're talking about, this economic development growth, some of this hopefully aerospace stuff you're talking about. Where are the other areas of growth in Yuma right now?
Well, we do a lot of agriculture. If you've ever driven through Yuma, you've seen
Oh,
it.
I've,
Um, a-
I'm a
and so,
lettuce days pioneer. I was there, man.
oh, great! Lettuce days. I wish we still did it that way, but we have an ag day now, so that kind of morphed to include everything we grow here, all 176 varieties of things that we grow.
Love it.
Um, I've got lots of Chamber of Commerce stats that we could sprinkle throughout the show.
Thank you.
Um, so ag tech is big. So we have as the labor force changes, there's a lot more automation happening, and so that's happening. Drone use, a lot of drone use in the ag industry, which parallels what's happening along the border, what's happening in the military. So that's quite a big expanse here as far as like what's happening in the drone field. And then defense tech is starting to grow a little bit here also. Again, we have two military installations that would support that growth. So those are kind of the areas that we're growing in, and then the medical field. We've got that's become our fourth leg of our economy here. So the largest is agriculture at 70% of our economy, and then the military is close behind that. Tourism and visitors, people come in here to work or to play, and then the medical industry between training nurses and PAs and stuff like that to just growing the medical capabilities.
Where's that going down? The training of all these folks. Is that your Yuma medical regional medical folks?
Right. Yeah. So the hospital is now renamed to Unvita Health.
That's
Unvita, yes, they partner with Arizona Western College, and they do some training, and then Regional Center for Border Health, they also do training. So there's two different options here.
when we were talking about agriculture. Water. A good mutual friend of ours is really into water over there, and and a valuable resource.
Yes.
What's the state of the water wars of the Southwest? And because you guys are right on the front lines of it.
Right. So it's interesting in the water wars, kind of everything's gone a little bit silent, partially because with the change of administration, we're going to change the Secretary of Department of Interior. But also it's almost kind of like calm before the storm because next year we have to establish a new treaty, a new agreement for the 7 states along the Colorado River. And because the current one's sunsetting. And so, there's a lot of positioning and a lot of that happening right now. Our mutual friend and myself are going to Washington, D.C. for the National Water Conference that focuses on the West. And I expect that's where things are going to start to position and heat up more publicly because we're running out of time. We got like a year left to get this thing figured out, and it's not the simplest thing to get squared away.
No.
So.
Waters for fighting. The stuff that's gone down in California with Trump kind of forcing them to start using some of their water and not blow it out in the ocean to save a chub or whatever they're doing out there. How do you think that might play in the water wars of the next 12 months?
Well, I hope it, and this is just a hope because there's no
Yes.
real way to make this happen, but it should reduce their demand on the Colorado River. It's really odd to me, just from a 30,000 foot perspective. You have some extremely large cities that sit on the largest body of water in the world, but they've decided that they need to take the water from an arid watershed that's already overtaxed to supply their water instead of take the water that's literally right in front of them.
Right.
From an engineering perspective, you're like, what's going on here? Why aren't we addressing how to use the Pacific Ocean, the largest body of water in the world, to feed the demand along the coast, and then let the watershed take care of itself? But hey, I'm not the end all be all decision on any of that. Actually, I'm not even in the decision making process on that. So.
Tell me about 12 months later where we're at on relation to the border, because you were, depending on what's going on the border, Mayor Doug was in a variety of national news stories saying, help us, bro. So where are we at
Yes.
today?
So today, and matter of fact, just yesterday, I met with the new chief of the Border Patrol. He's doing his tour He was full-time Border Patrol, retired, and then went to work for Governor Babbitt in Texas as his border czar. And then when President Trump came on board, he pulled him up to be in DHS, to be in charge of all Border Patrol. So that's a positive thing, because we didn't get to see very many officials in the last 4 years.
Shocking.
And then our numbers, if you remember the peak, which was about 2 years ago, was 1,500 people coming across a day. Right now, we're dealing with 7 people a day.
You got it here from Mayor Doug. They went from 1,200 a day to 7 a day. That's 7 people
7.
a day.
Yep, 7. And so that's obviously changed dramatically what Border Patrol is doing day to day. There's a lot more drug interdiction, a lot more positive out there, looking for the people that are trying to get away, not the people that are turning themselves in. And there's another kind of revelation. And actually, this has never happened ever. But every case that has been turned over to the district attorney, the U.S. district attorney for prosecution, has been accepted for prosecution. That doesn't, a lot of times they'll reject them and say, no, they qualify for this or for that exemption, and then just release them.
Right.
Right now, they've 100%, and that's not just in Yuma, that's everywhere across the border. So that's a complete change of direction, which is even more important, in my opinion, than picking people up along the border, because when you start returning absolutely everybody back to their home countries, it discourages the next guy from taking the trip to come to
Correct.
the border. And that's more important than just catching the one-offs.
So one of the listeners messaged me. They wanted to know about, in the agricultural world, you do have guest workers that come across the border to work. And just talk about kind of how the guest worker program, because people are saying with a broken immigration system, why don't we expand guest worker programs? So kind of explain the success of guest worker programs in Yuma.
Sure, and I appreciate that kind of nuanced question. I am going to start with saying that the Yuma ag industry does not rely at all on illegal labor, because they need consistent, trained labor that comes to work every day, that's not afraid of being arrested, those kind of things. And so they don't. There isn't going to be an impact going from 1,500 to 7. Isn't going to impact the workforce that we rely upon for our winter harvest, which is between 40 and 50,000 people in the winter that need for the winter harvest. So the way the worker program works, most of the guest workers are under a program called H-2A. And what that does is it approves a worker. They go through a background check. They are tied to a specific employer, and they are tied for a specific task. So they can come to work for Taylor Farms to harvest lettuce from December to May, and that's it. Then they have to reapply into the program. The employer provides them housing and provides them transportation, and that. Now, if they step out of line, they get into a bar fight, they decide shoplifting is better than buying, they get to go back right away after they serve whatever prison or impact that they have from doing the crime. So they are not. Their program is very well protected from a perspective of you don't bring in nefarious people. The people that come in for that worker program, they want to work and they want to go back home, and that's how the H-2A program works. Interestingly enough, the way the program is set up is more for communities off the border, because we have a lot of H-2A workers and other domestic and foreign workers that actually live in Mexico. They've got families there. They have better quality of life because the cost of living is lower, and they commute in every day, and that puts about 15 to 20,000 people coming every morning through the San Luis port of entry to get on buses to go out in the field and work, and then they come home every night, cross the border back into Mexico, and so they've got this continual back and forth on a daily basis to go to work. So you think their commute in Tucson can get long? Yeah, I'm pretty sure you're not getting going through a port of entry to make that happen.
So 1,500 a day on the guest worker program, and so out of the 40 or 50,000 during high harvest in the winter, how many of those you think are roughly guest workers?
Guest workers, you're probably about half.
Okay,
would be my estimation. So it's a pretty substantial number. And if I said 1,500 coming through the port, I meant 15,000 coming through the port.
Gotcha. Okay.
Yeah, it's order of magnitude. So it's very interesting. If you're ever in Yuma and you want to go see it, we can get up at 3 a.m. We can go to San Luis, and I call it the Tale of Two Cities, because about 4 a.m. the laborers come, and when you have 15,000 people show up, it's pretty substantial. They get in. There's this little economy that happens. The taco vendors and all sorts of stuff's going on. People get their breakfast. They get on the bus, and then they leave. And then the city of San Luis itself wakes up and comes to work and does their thing. So there's like two different sides of San Luis that just naturally happen. It's not highly structured. It's just organic.
I feel like this is one of those success stories that is just under wraps in relation to the entire immigration discussion.
Clearly, I mean, does that program need help and get reworked? 100%, it does. But for what it's working and what it's doing right now, it's pretty amazing, because it just happens. It seems like it just happens, right? For those of us standing on the outside and we see the laborers harvesting lettuce, like it just happens. But there's a lot of work on getting that together. But it is a success story. And so as we talk about our domestic workers, the American citizens that aren't interested in harvesting, we need to have a labor source from somewhere. And the foreign workers that come through a legal process are really the savior, in a way, of getting the product out of the field, cultivating it during season. All that is labor intensive.
I've been seeing stories. We'll switch to tourism real quick, because Trump told them Canada is going to be the 51st state and all this stuff, that the Canadians are pissed and not coming to America and all this jazz. And you have a good amount of Canadians that visit Yuma in the winter. Are you getting the disgruntled Canadian effect in Yuma this year?
I haven't quite seen it yet. Sometimes we have to wait for the sales tax numbers to show before we see.
Right.
The traffic still seems to be pretty high, and the license plate colors seem to be various. So,
winter ancillary brutal, right? So coming to Yuma sounds really good.
It doesn't sound like there's too much impact this year, but I don't have any numbers on it. Now, most of them should have already been here before the election and before the 51st state comment came out, so they might have already committed for the season.
And the thing about Yuma is there's a lot of people that I know who used to RV and go to Tucson all ended up in Yuma. And yes. wasn't that part of Tucson still has their tax on RVs, or I forgot how that worked again.
I'm not really sure what drove them out of Tucson. It could just be the sheer size that Tucson's getting. But from Yuma, people have been coming here literally for generations. Like, I'm starting to talk to retirees that, my parents came here for 20 years and we liked it, so we kept coming. And they're buying homes. So, we have a little bit of a housing crisis going on, right? But we have this extra demand on our housing market here with our winter visitors who live in the house 4 or 5 months of the year, but they own it. And so it's a different than when I was growing up and everyone just drug their RV across the whole continent to set it up in Yuma for a few months.
One day they'll develop Vermin Land, or whatever that thing is, that sign I keep seeing when I come visit you.
What's interesting? If you look on Google Earth at Vermin Land and go south of I-8, you will see like a mini city laid out, like dirt roads in a figure 8 pattern.
Oh, really?
With medians. So the dirt road has like a median to it. I did a survey out there. Geez, it must have been 15, 20 years ago. And I'm driving around and I'm looking at these graded roads and what looked like a layout for a mini city. And I'd never seen dirt roads with medians, but it was very deliberate and very clear.
The dreams of Vermaland, as we like to say.
Yep.
Tell me about one of the things. Also, you guys, I keep telling people here, and they have that. What you guys invested, a decent amount into the softball world, and took
Yes.
advantage of your geographic position between Southern California and Phoenix. Who knew we were going to talk about the success of a few extra softball fields?
Well, so what's interesting that we cut the ribbon on those softball fields, and it's a complex of 6 fields, 4 fields, 4 fields, 4 fields. Okay, which complements. We have a lot of other fields around the city, but 4 competition rated fields, adult level. We cut the ribbon on that right before COVID, and what ended up happening. Um, and I'd love to say it was part of the plan, but it just obviously nothing in COVID was part of the plan. Um, California completely shut down, but the people who played softball still wanted to play softball. So guess where they came? They came
Yuma,
here,
love it.
and then our restaurants were able to then have all that extra business that then kept them afloat during that tough time. So we have the National Junior Athletic Association's women's softball championships here. We've had it 2 years. We're going to have it a third year. The fields are constantly busy. We've added an archery range, not in the softball fields, but kind of next to it.
Yeah, thank
because
you.
that would be too interesting. Our law enforcement memorial is right there, and then we just announced that our Colorado River Balloon Festival is going to move to there too, so that there's more open space and more activities that we can have. And if you've never been to the Colorado River Balloon Festival, come. I believe it's in October. It's a lot of fun if you like watching balloons go up in the sky.
I just like balloons and rockets going on at the same time. Now that's a city, buddy. I also want to give you credit. I always tell this to people. Yuma, Arizona, the only downtown in the entire state that has covered sidewalks. Why are you guys the only people smart enough to have a covered sidewalk in Arizona?
I can't explain it for the other cities, but we've had covered sidewalks for over 100 years. So
That's what I'm saying.
this is not like an innovation that Doug came up with. It's just, it's hot in Arizona. You think other cities would follow suit, but no, we appreciate those covered sidewalks.
So in his day job, in addition to his being the mayor, Doug is a deacon in the Catholic Church. And I was thinking of you, my buddy Father Matt at the Newman Center at NAU. They have a very active social media presence. And they had the kids come out, and you're going to love this, rate how good or bad the ashes were placed on their head. You would have loved it. It was like, the ones that got the splotch.
Yeah, the smudge. Yes, yeah. That's I've never heard of that before. I'll
send it to you.
That
You'll
puts
laugh your
extra
ass
pressure.
off.
That puts extra pressure on deacons to make sure the cross is actually visible.
So they showed the kids like on the camera what it looked like, and they had to give a rating of 1 to 10 of how good the person put the ashes on their forehead. So I was thinking of my priest and deacon buddies out there, making sure you guys make you a little nervous next time.
How was your ashes rated? Were they?
I got splotched.
I got splotched. I got. Matter of fact, mine was so light that by the time I actually remembered to look in the mirror, I couldn't quite see them anymore. But there was
mine was a 3 out of 10.
3 out of 10. My wife was relating a story to me off of, I don't know, Facebook or one of those social channels about someone who went to get their driver's license on Ash Wednesday.
Oh yeah, and she kept it on, and so forever on her license plate, she has her ashes on her head. I mean, on her driver's license.
Yeah, that's a statement. That's good.
If you really want to, if you're single and you're on these dating sites, take the picture with your ashes on. Put that on there. That'll weed out a bunch of people.
Well, it'll attract the Catholics though.
Well, have a amazing rest of your Lent and a great Easter when we get there. And keep up the good work. You're one of my favorite towns, and keep doing what you're doing, my friend.
Well, thank you very much. We're going to have our air show this weekend. So if you're not doing anything on Saturday, come on in. You're going to see an amazing air show. And you missed the Midnight at the Oasis car show last weekend. So expect to see you in town soon.
I wanted to come, but by our friends that we stay with are like so busy. They're like, don't come this weekend. You'll never see
Very
it.
good. Thanks for having me on.
All right, Mayor Doug, take care.
You too.
That's Mayor Doug Nicholls, the great city of Yuma, going to become the spaceport city of the Southwest, not Tucson, Arizona. All right, Malta Joe, let's go to break. Dream Media Network officers Jamie Voss and Detective Nate Foster from TPD are coming up very, very soon. We're going to talk about the reality of what's going on in the streets of Tucson. ESQ just sent me one about there was a call at 1 o'clock this morning at Pio Nuevo, the 100-acre woods. Someone being tortured. Not making that up. Welcome to Rahina's Tucson.